Today we will create a simple Spring Boot API application using Claude Code AI. We will not write single line of code by hand. We will use AI to generate all the code. Then we'll add some check endpoint, add some CRUD APIs, add a database configuration, reorganize the code, and verify the APIs in Postman. We will auto create this Postman collection using AI and add some documentation. Let's start by initializing a simple Spring Boot project. So you can use the Spring initializer, download this file. Once you have the file downloaded, unzip into a projects directory. So it will look like this, which is a basic structure for a Spring Boot application. Now let's open this in VS Code. I use Windows, so we need to use WSL to work with Claude Code AI. Now let's open the VS Code editor. So once we have the VS Code open, we can notice that we have just a build Gradle file and demo application file, the two files there. Now let's start using the Claude Code AI to start adding some code to this. We will first start by just adding some check endpoint. Later we'll add more CRUD APIs. Add check endpoint. Claude Code AI will start by listing down the tasks it's supposed to do, then go over each one of them, analyzing the code, then creating the controller file, and let's try to create the health controller now. Yeah, it says it is done. So you can refresh this file structure, the folder structure. You can see the control is added. You notice it is not as per the standards. I mean, it's not in a controller folder. We will refactor this later. Now let's add some CRUD APIs. Let's say add CRUD APIs to a resource named notes. So we're just giving commands to Cloud AI to do the things. So it will start adding the entity class, then the repository and the node controller in this sequence. Every time it's trying to create a file, it will ask us to review it and then it will save it. So you can look at this side. So we try to add this entity file. It has ID, title and the content. It also has a getter and setters. Ideally, we should use Lombak. So later we will enhance this, all using AI. So next it's trying to create a node repository, then finally the controller. So we got these three files created. Again, it's not ideal, it's all in one folder. Ideally this should be created in a separate folder structure. Now let's add a database configuration if it is not already added. Add h2 configuration. So you could use MySQL, Postgres. It will just add a dependency in the build.gradle to start working with the database. So we will next try to start the server and start using the APIs, start testing out the APIs. Somehow it's not added in the build Gradle. Ensure h2 dependency is added in build.gradle. So the thing with AI is we need to do some hand holding. You should have some basic understanding of how Spring works or any framework for that matter. So sometimes the AI requires some hand holding, sometimes misses out few things. It is not as per the standard industry level code. Okay, finally it was able to add this dependency. Now before we try to run our code, let's refactor this package structure and also maybe add Lombok. Refactor Java files into appropriate packages and add support for Lombok. So it has this many tasks to do. Add Lombok dependency, add the appropriate package structure, move these files to appropriate packages. So these are things it's trying to do. So every time you try to create a new file or a new folder, it will ask you to confirm. You could always say remember your choice and do it every time. We'll do that with the make directory. So here you will choose second option where it will automatically create for all the directories. So as it is doing, we can refresh this folder structure and see it created controller, entity, repository. Next, it will also try to move these files into appropriate packages. So remember, so far we have not written any code. We are only being giving commands to this AI. So it's all creating this code structure. So it's trying to move the file now. So it will first create files in the packages and then it will delete the unnecessary ones. So it has created these files. Now it will delete all this in the root folder. So try to delete this. We can delete, confirm that it can delete the files. So it has confirmed that all the tasks has been completed. So now let's start to run the server, or before that let's generate the Postman collections from which we can verify things. So before that, parallelly we can start our server in the separate window. Cradle boot run. You could do this from the terminal inside VS Code also, but I prefer to do it outside. So as it is starting up, let's also generate the Postman collection. All APIs and save the file in resources folder. So I want the Postman collection to be stored under resources, which then I can take it and import into the Postman. Let's give this task to AI, then let's go back and check if our server is coming up. Yeah, it's still starting up. Okay, it has generated the file and it's showing us this file. Let's accept the file. The file is here, the collection. So now we will open Postman and try to run some tests. Okay, let's bring up Postman. Let's import the collection. I have this collection here in the resources folder. You can just drag and drop this into Postman. Here we have it. So there is lcheck endpoint and there is this nodes API. It also has this nice environment variables configured. So let's start with the lcheck. So it says it's up on the timestamp. Now let's try to fetch the nodes using this get API. Obviously there is no nodes available, it will be empty array. Let's create a node. So it has also added some basic payloads to start with. You can modify that. So create this node. It has added that with the ID of 1. Let's again do a fetch. It's good. Let's add another one just to verify this. And go to nodes. There are 2. Now let's try to update the node. If you notice, it also has this payload generated for this. Updating node title. It works. Let's finally delete a node. And let's verify if that's deleted as expected. So we have only 1 now. So that's good. It's working as expected without writing a single line of code. Let's now go back here and try to generate some documentation for our API. Generate Swagger API documentation. So before it does any changes to a project, it clearly tells you what it's trying to do. So it tells you, I will do this task and what are the to-do list. Add this dependency, create OpenApp configuration class, the annotations to the controllers. So it's clearly tell you what it's trying to do. And in our earlier task, we also added Lombok. Let's verify if it is as expected. Yeah, the node entity has been changed. It's using all the Lombok annotations. You will see there are no getters and setters. The file is very compact with only required ones. Okay, it's adding the annotations for the API documentation in the controllers. You are basically reviewing what changes it's making. It's as good as you are reviewing some junior engineer's code and accepting their changes. Some tasks are faster, some of them takes more time to analyze all the files and find the patterns and add those changes there. Now it's adding it to the nodes controller. Once it completes its tasks, the AI tasks, it will also show a summary of what it did and if there are any information to share like the URL. This is the URL. If you create an API, it will tell this is the URL you can access this API in. So it clearly tells you all the details. Okay, so there were 3 tasks it was trying to do and it has completed them. Now it will generate a summary of what it did and where you can access your API documentation. So it's completed these 3 steps and you can see this is a URL it will telling to access to see the documentation. So before that we may have to restart our server. So we'll do it from here. By the time it starts, let's copy this URL for the documentation. And we will try to open it in our browser. Let's make sure the server is up before we actually test it out. Is up. Let's verify the documentation. Okay, the documentation is ready. We have all these APIs clearly showing things, and there's also a documentation. The API talks in JSON format, or you can say OpenAI JSON. You can open this in browser or from Postman. Just show your JSON of your all the APIs. This is what is used by your Swagger UI also. All right. So we did create a Spring Boot API, added some check endpoints, CRUD APIs, and configure database. We use H2, but the same thing will work in MySQL or Postgres. Organize the code or reorganize the code, then tested it from Postman and generate documentation. There is much more that you can do with this. Basically creating more test cases, maybe adding more APIs or services. Right now, if you see, the controller is directly talking to your repository. Maybe in some cases we don't want this. You want to create a service layer which is interacting with repository. So you can do all that just by giving commands to Claude Code. I hope this is helpful. So maybe in future videos we will look at more use cases. Thank you.